Greetings, friends. I'm Marc David, founder of the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. Thank you for your time. So here's a question a lot of people ask me. Why do I sabotage myself with food? Of course, no one wants to feel out of control with eating. Most people that I meet want to feel good about their body, empowered in their relationship with food, and we want to feel that we have things under control. Meaning, if I say I don't want to eat something, then I surely don't want to eat it. So let's get right to it. The answer to the question, why do I sabotage myself with food, is this: you don't. You may think you're sabotaging yourself, but something very different is happening. Allow me to explain. In the true definition of the word sabotage, sabotage means to deliberately destroy, damage, or obstruct. Note the word deliberate. There's nothing truly deliberate in your efforts when you eat something that you say you don't really want to eat. Sabotage also implies enemy intent. That is, there is someone bad working against you. The truth is, though, you are not your own enemy here. That's an extremely ineffective psychological frame to work from. If you are your own enemy, then you would need to fight yourself to overcome yourself. With that in mind, allow me to point out that there has been no useful psychological or personal growth approach ever invented that achieves personal success and happiness via self-attack. It's like one hand fighting the other. It just looks silly. So let's create a whole new reframe here. You're not sabotaging yourself. However, there is a part of you that has a different agenda, that has its own needs, that wants to be heard, and that's been buried beneath your conscious awareness. Here's the thing. Much of psychology looks at each person as one person, which is true, but it's more nuanced. Some of the most compelling and newer psychological models, including parts psychology, internal family systems therapy, Jungian and archetypal psychology, and voice dialogue, have this to say. Essentially, we're not just a person, we're a crowd, meaning there are different voices or personas or archetypes within us. If you're a woman, for example, you might contain the archetypes or personas of mother, daughter, sister, friend, queen, businesswoman, wild woman, wise woman, witch, lover, child, rebel, victim, healer, scientist, many, many more. A man can contain voices or archetypes such as father, son, king, prince, friend, warrior, wizard, counselor, businessman, child, nerd, gambler, killer, cowboy, Casanova, sage, saint, and so many more. These are all aspects of us, and we can have dozens of such voices within us. And at any given point in our day, one of these voices is sitting at the head of the table, and it's making our food choices. So when you say that you don't want to eat something that you know isn't right for you, that's generally the voice of your adult or your inner royalty, your king or your queen. It's the voice of reason, wisdom, clarity, authorship. And when we go against ourselves, what most people call self-sabotage, that's most often the voice of the inner child in us, our inner teenager maybe, or the rebel inside us that takes over, claims a seat at the head of the table, and makes choices that goes against the adult voice within us. My friends, that in a nutshell is the psychology of what happens when you think you're sabotaging yourself with food. There's simply another voice within us taking over. That's part of us. It's essential to us, but for various reasons, it's operating beneath our awareness. We all have a child within us who wants what it wants when it wants it. We all have an inner teenager or rebel who could care less about what anybody thinks, and it especially doesn't care what the adult inside of us thinks. But here's the thing. It's not about fighting these voices. It's not about controlling them, dominating them, eliminating them, using willpower to overcome them, or shaming ourselves into submission. It's about listening to these voices. It's about understanding them. It's about recognizing their existence and learning about what these parts of us truly want. Let me give you a real-life example so you can get a sense of how this all works. Woman, I'll call her Cheryl, came to see me to lose over 75 pounds. She was 43 years old when we worked together. Cheryl was a copywriter and an editor for a media company. She was good at her job, though pretty tired and bored with it. Cheryl was an extremely witty, bright person, quick with words. She acknowledges that she prefers to be isolated and alone because of her weight. She has been overweight since childhood and has done just about every weight loss and nutritional approach that a human being could do. She's extremely knowledgeable about all things weight loss and nutrition and laughs at the irony of how that hasn't helped her one bit. Cheryl feels very cynical about the whole dieting universe because it's failed her, and seeing me was sort of a last resort. She spent years in therapy, and though she got something out of it, her weight never changed as a result. Cheryl was quite serious that she wanted to finally lose weight because she was feeling the consequences in terms of her health, knee issues, and prediabetes. So during our first session, I noticed that whenever Cheryl talked about how she would overeat her favorite forbidden foods, ice cream, cake, donuts, she'd have a big smile on her face. So I pointed this out to her and she smiled even more, and we both got a good laugh out of it. I asked her why she thought she would smile when she thought about breaking her own food rules, since losing weight was actually serious business for her. And she was truly perplexed and had no answer. I explained to her and suggested the concept of different voices or archetypes within us. I talked about how they can operate beneath our awareness, sit at the head of the table, so to speak, and make most of our food choices. And she was very intrigued. What especially caught her attention was when I pointed out that I thought she was really the rebellious type, and that was my intuitive sense of Cheryl. Her face really lit up when I said that, and she was actually proud of this part of her. I suggested that it was likely the rebel in her that was driving her food choices, more like a rebellious teenager. Now, over the next handful of months, our work became exploring this part of her. Cheryl always felt different from her family, the people around her, the kids in her age group. She was always breaking the rules. She didn't like anyone telling her what to do. And now she created a life where she worked at home, didn't have to deal with too many people in her company, and was her own person. And such a life had her isolated, though, with few friends, feeling cynical, and with food as her only pleasure. Bottom line was this. She needed to help the rebel in her find healthier ways to rebel. And at the same time, she needed to cultivate more of the queen, the part of her that's wise, that cares, that has self-respect, that has dignity, that nourishes herself, her body, and nourishes others. In many ways, she was like a highly functional 16-year-old when it came to work, but stuck in a rebellious way of seeing herself in the world. Over the course of almost a year, Cheryl took on the challenge of maturing herself and working with this part of her, the rebel, that was expressing itself like a rebel without a cause and going against what she said she wanted most. So check this out. In our time together, she lost about 50 pounds, but more importantly, she was on a new journey in her life, one that was calling her into being more and more of her best self. Can you see how this understanding and this approach just completely reframes the conversation called sabotaging myself? And it opens up new possibilities for how we can begin to work with unwanted eating behaviors in a whole new way. So this is just one of hundreds of ways that our inner voices can be unknowingly in charge of our inner menu and our food choices. So your job is never to fight or belittle or attack yourself. Your job is to listen, to learn, to embrace, to forgive, and to act with skill and kindness. That's the key to letting go of self-sabotage.
Hey friends, we're so happy that you've joined us for another episode of The Psychology of Eating with Marc David. Are you loving these episodes? Then simply subscribe and you'll never miss an episode again. We'd also love it if you'd leave us a comment below so we can hear more about your own journey with food and body. And if you're curious about what we offer at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, including our internationally acclaimed coach certification training that's rooted in dynamic eating psychology and mind-body nutrition, please head on over to our website, psychologyofeating.com. Until next time, take care, and remember, Having the body you want starts with loving the body you have.